Boy saw that his dad hadn't finished his yogurt and reached out to take it. Unexpectedly, his dad snatched it away from him and sternly warned the boy not to touch anything he had already eaten. Little did the boy know, his dad was actually trying to protect him. John was a window cleaner who had recently been diagnosed with a terminal illness. He had less than 3 months to live, but his son was only 3 years old. John didn't dare to let him know the news and could only pretend to be casual, continuing to take care of his son normally. He would comb his hair and read to him, waiting until his son was asleep before secretly taking his medication. He knew his time was short, and the most important thing now was to find an adoptive family for his son. He found the adoption agency and explained his situation. Soon, he met the first potential adoptive family. They were upper middle class. They had a spacious villa in the suburbs and a large farm. John was very satisfied and thought that if Michael could grow up here, he would definitely have a better future than himself. However, during their conversation, the male host seemed to be a control freak. He mentioned that in the future, Michael would have to transfer to an elite school even if John said Michael preferred his current school to refuse. John knew that Michael would not have a happy childhood living under controlling parents. On the way back home, he asked Michael if he wanted to live in the luxurious house they had just visited. Michael answered that he liked their current home. Hearing this answer, John felt bittersweet. The adoption agency suggested that John make a memory box where he could place his belongings or leave a message. When Michael turned 18, he would be able to open it and feel his father's warmth again. However, John was strongly resistant to the idea. Why does he have to know he was adopted? We will find him a family that will be his family, his only family. He won't even have to remember how useless his parents were. His mother leaves him and then his father dies. I mean, that'll definitely fuck him up. Back at home, looking at his young son, he pretended to be normal. He took Michael to the park to play and eat ice cream, wanting to spend as much time with him as possible. But seeing the fathers playing soccer with their children in the park, he felt envious. He couldn't witness the scene of Michael growing up. That day, John went to work and looked through the window at the children in other people's homes. The scattered toys and the slide in the yard made him feel bitter. He also wanted to give Michael such a childhood. The next day, he took Michael to the second potential adoptive family. They were a loving middle-aged couple with good personalities and a harmonious relationship. The husband loved to joke and was always cheerful while the wife was good at making cakes. The couple had always wanted a child but couldn't conceive. They had adopted a little girl for 3 years and had an adorable pet rabbit. The conditions were quite good, but the only problem was that the male host was very afraid of dogs, and Michael had always wanted a pet dog. On the way back in the car, John asked Michael if he wanted to have a pet rabbit instead. But Michael said he still wanted a dog. It seemed that Michael and that family were not destined to be together. That day, Michael found a dead beetle under a tree. He was curious and asked his dad why the beetle wasn't moving. John said it had died. Innocently, his son asked what death meant. John thought that this might be a good opportunity to explain death to his son and not just make up a fairy tale. He said that all living creatures in this world grow old and die and their souls leave their bodies. And in the end, the bodies would slowly decay. Michael still was not fully understanding the meaning of death at such a young age. John's health deteriorated more and more. One day at work, a sudden burst of intense pain almost made him lose consciousness. He gritted his teeth and withstood the pain, but his employer thought he was slacking off and deliberately deducted a large amount from his salary. John went to the hospital and his condition worsened. He only had a month left. He egg-washed his employer's house, venting all his frustration. Afterwards, he wanted to spend some time playing with Michael, but the suffering from his illness forced him to lie down on the couch. The next day, they visited another family, a diverse middle-class household. The couple had 6 children, some biological and some adopted. Not only that, they also had a dog that Michael loved. The conditions seemed ideal, and the couple assured John that all their children, regardless of being biological or adopted, were treated equally and loved as their own. They even made a promise that Michael would be their last adopted child. However, John discovered that one of the children in that family was very rude, and even the youngest child, a 5-year-old, seemed hostile towards Michael. Thus, John declined the offer from this family. John was not satisfied with the 3 families in a row. He went to the adoption agency to see if he could hand over Michael to his mother. The staff said that someone who had previously abandoned a child was likely to abandon them again, so they couldn't take that risk. The staff reminded him that time was running out and he needed to make a decision soon. John fell into silence after hearing this. He wasn't actually a picky person, but he couldn't help but want to give the best to his son. Soon, they arrived at the fourth family. This family was a bit special as it consisted of only a single woman. It turned out that she had accidentally gotten pregnant when she was young and had put the child up for adoption based on her parents' advice. She had regretted that decision ever since, especially when the doctor told her that she could no longer conceive a baby again. Therefore, she wanted to adopt a child, but her husband didn't want to adopt, so they had divorced. During their conversation, John could clearly feel that the woman genuinely liked children. She would crouch down and talk to Michael and ask about his daily life. However, John knew how difficult it was for a single parent to care for a child. He still wanted to find a complete family for Michael. Just then, Michael asked the woman if she would also die. All of the adults in the room froze, and John felt a mix of emotions. He felt that Michael didn't understand anything, yet he also felt like Michael already knew everything. On the way home, John saw a child walking to school alone. As he watched, he felt like he was seeing Michael in the future. This strengthened his determination to find the best family for Michael before he died. Not long after, they arrived at the fifth family. This couple was very wealthy and seemed friendly. As soon as they entered the house, the man gave Michael a stuffed bunny doll. They then showed them around the house. During their conversation, John learned that the couple was capable of conceiving children but didn't want it to affect their quality of life, so they decided to adopt a child as a new experience in their lives. When John heard this reason, he felt uneasy. As they were leaving, the woman gave her husband a look and he went to retrieve the bunny doll. In that moment, John knew that he could not leave Michael with his family. If they couldn't even share a toy, how could they provide a better life for his son? On the way home, Michael suddenly asked John, "What's adopt daddy?" John was stunned. He explained, adopt is when a child cannot be looked after by his mommy and daddy, so he can go and live with two nice new parents. After hearing this, little Michael firmly said, "I don't want new parents." He then let go of John's hand and walked along a straight line. In that moment, John felt like he was seeing Michael walking alone on the tightrope of life after he was gone. When they returned home, John started walking in a straight line on the road just like Michael did, but after a few steps, his body couldn't hold up anymore. The torment of his illness had caused him to lose his basic balance. John knew he was reaching his limit. He started to vomit frequently and his hands trembled uncontrollably when pouring drinks. He was afraid that his illness would affect Michael, so he forbade him from using the same utensils. Michael noticed all of these changes as if he didn't want his father to leave. Michael began to rebel. He refused to wear new pajamas and didn't want to hear stories about death. John grounded him in his room, and in protest, Michael threw all of his new belongings out. Seeing this, John couldn't help but smile. Instead of enduring everything silently, at least Michael knew how to express his emotions. In the following days, John began to prepare for his own passing. He made a trip to the cemetery to secure his new home, sold his car, and sorted out his work. Then he took Michael to an amusement park. They played bumper cars and ate cotton candy, experiencing all the activities they had always wanted to try but never had. At night, he read a picture book about death to Michael. Finally, he decided to teach Michael how to accept his death. Like the beetle left its body, one day soon your daddy will leave his body. But I will always be around you in the air and in the sunshine that warms you. You won't see me, but you can talk to me, you can feel me in your heart. Under John's explanation, Michael finally understood the meaning of death. The body disappeared, but love remained in the heart. After Michael fell asleep that night, John started making a memory box. He wrote 15 letters, and Michael would receive one on his birthday every year. He placed his belongings and the only photo of Michael's mother in the box. From that point on, these items and letters would be the connection between him and Michael. The streets were cold and quiet. In the early morning, John and Michael took the bus to the adoptive family's home. John had Michael press the doorbell. When the door opened, it was the single woman who came out. She greeted John first, then slowly crouched down to meet Michael's eyes. "So lovely to see you again," she said. Michael didn't respond, but instead turned and looked at his father. At that moment, his father was also looking at him with a smile. Finally, the big hand held the small hand and the film ends.